Building Brands podcast is dedicated to exploring the journeys of industry leaders who have successfully built a brand. Join Building Brands Marketing, a marketing agency that has successfully scaled multiple brands, as we dive deep into the strategies, challenges, and insights that have shaped the success of industry leaders and provide you with the resources you need to do the same. Building Brands Marketing is a full-service marketing agency specializing in crafting customized marketing strategies for service-based businesses with the creative powerhouse to drive real results. Welcome to the Building Brands Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Building Brands Podcast. My name is Braden Pope. I am the host of today's episode in the Policy and Profit series. Today I have on the show Bret Brummitt, who is the founder of Generous Benefits and based out of Austin, Texas. Bret, how are you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks, Braden.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into the questions. So first, I'm curious to learn a little bit more about Generous Benefits. The mission that you've established as a part of founding Generous Benefits is the idea that investing in employees isn't just good ethics, it's actually good business practices and it's good for your business. So how did you identify the people-first, values-driven approach that is the foundation of Generous Benefits? And then also tell us a little bit about Generous Benefits and the company that you founded.
Yeah, for sure. So looking at, companies, working with companies for the last 20, 25 years in some role or the other, from the insurance space, we've been interacting with the employer's employees. We do sit with the employer, the decision makers, talking about their strategic goals, but those strategic goals, live and die once they leave that goal setting to the person that has to execute on those items. And that's also the same thing comes true in health plans and insurance benefits. Like anything someone wants to do as part of a company package lives and dies on what they want to do. What actually happens is when the employee needs to utilize it. And so thinking about how to really do something impactful to meet a company's goals, you have to align it with the employee's goals and interest. And that's where we started focusing so much on what the employee needs, what the employee is looking for, how the employee understands it, how much to educate the employee and how much to invest back into that person, and have them try to create this, the secret sauce in all of it. Any part of business, whether we're talking an insurance benefits package or just getting a product to the end result. It's a secret sauce of the employer wanting to achieve a result and the employee being invested enough to be the person to get them to the end goal. And so having that synergy of how do you get the employee to care as much as you do, again, it becomes creating that shared ecosystem. And that's really when we start talking about, great benefits, employee-focused benefits, driving that. It's trying to unlock that secret sauce where everyone has the investment of stewardship. The employer is being a good steward of their, employer, top-down distribution of knowledge and goals to the employee, giving the top-up give back of this is the community I work for. I like it here. I'm aligned with my values. My work is aligned here. I want the company to succeed. If company succeeds, company's good financially, then my financial goals are also being achieved. And that secret sauce is really why we focus so much on the employee, because, unfortunately, prior to Generous Benefits, not necessarily prior to Generous Benefits, but throughout, looking around our industry, the insurance industry, it's been more about how do we just distribute something that will at bare minimum somehow work for the employer and hope it doesn't make everyone mad when we increase the price. So that's,
right.
That's been the shift. And so that's why we built that somewhat of an inverse, way of looking out to how we, built our mission statement of improving the communities you serve. Those communities are generally employer populations, and the people we're doing is the employer. We want to make sure they're serving their people, and we want to improve that population. So that's what really built it.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And I see the give and take there. Like you invest in the people and the people will then have that motivation to invest back in their company as well. So a lot of business owners and founders will talk about their values and they'll talk about incorporating those values into lower level employees throughout the entire organization. But you've actually scaled that into a successful business. So I guess, can you talk about how or what strategies you implemented to scale that into a successful business model?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we are not willing, there's nothing that we're going to have someone else do that we're not willing to do ourselves.
Right.
So it starts with our core values and how we treat our employees. When I started this, Kalinda came along with me. It was the two of us starting this company. It was from the very beginning, how do I provide security and certainty? And, for a small business, a two-person business is a very insecure, uncertain end goal. Like, how does someone come from a 2,000 life company that has, long trailing savings accounts and accounts receivables and income coming in to knowing that their job is first protected in there. So building the, hey, we have, transparent with financials, knowing where we are, what our end goals, we're not going to grow too quickly. And looking back to all the perks and benefits of a larger company, but also the perks and benefits of a nimble, small, we get to create what we want company, starting with the very first employee, which was Kalinda, and then growing into the rest of the team that we're at today with still not a huge team, under 10 total employees, and building into what do they need for their life? What do they need to make it valuable for them? I mean, I have employees. We do predominantly health insurance plans. We do have a couple of employees that don't need health insurance benefits and they don't have that. However, we look around what they need, and is it time flexibility at 10 a.m.? Is it, something else? Is it a direct primary care physician relationship they now have access to through our company? Do they actually just need to save more for retirement because, it's one spouse playing catch up and retirement? And that can be a very meaningful piece. And so having those internal conversations and then also product testing the things we think our clients need, becoming the real beta testers, because it's no fun to sell something or give advice to someone for something you only know works on a PowerPoint, not knowing how it works in real life when you have a child that's, injured at a sports event on the weekend, or you need to go to a pharmacy and you don't know where to go and what to pay. Like, those are the things that are very rudimentary to the American life, but not very translatable sometimes from a PowerPoint. So having a team that's willing to go through the process of, this is how we've always done it. This is a little solution or strategy that's going to be different. Can we come live that experience first and understand what that means for the employee population? Having that in our core is how we've been able to continue to be successful. And while I wouldn't say we're big or scaling up, we're definitely building a product in a workplace environment that I believe is replicable to other teams.
Awesome. That's awesome insight there. And so you have this foundation, you're scaling your business, you're growing year after year. Whenever it comes to your actual marketing strategy and implementing these values in a marketing strategy to your target audience, which it sounds like is primarily employers, how do you go about implementing that messaging? What does that look like in your campaigns, and how have you implemented that?
Yeah, I'm one of the more impactful things we've had around our marketing and our goals and building, the brand as it is, beyond what it was from just myself and Kalinda, is trying to harness the way we think. And so, I mean, as rudimentary as it is, it's just recording an hour or two of us talking back and forth, just having just a memory dump, just start talking about everything and having somebody else go through that, peel pieces back out of it, pick it apart, ask questions, and really try to decide what was in Bret's head, what was in Kalinda's head, what was in Leanne's head, what was in Tracy's head. How do we process these different items? And is that part of what is now Generous Benefits as a brand, more so than I know a guy, I know a girl, I know a person? That's how do you take the person, which is a super, warm and fuzzy, and take the person and build it into the brand to make the brand as warm and fuzzy, so it doesn't always have to be the person. And really I would say those couple of hours of just recording us talking out loud and having someone review it built that foundational baseline that then rolls all the way into, the 2023 marketing plan, the 2024, the 2025, and those core elements continue to get approved upon. And then we get and layer it in with some more, analytical tools of where is that fit in the market? Where are people not attacking this message to a marketplace? Like where is an underserved, thing that we do really well that people are searching for, but there's not a lot of content out there. And so we've focused on, what are some of those keyword searches that there's not a lot of competition for when we get into the SEO space? Where is it differentiating from our competitors into like a LinkedIn space or an Instagram area? Where are we having different conversations at a boardroom? And those become the areas where we're like, okay, so these are the things we do. We highly value them. There's people searching for them, but there's actually not a lot of competition for the solution. And it's stuff we're jazzed up about. So how do we power into those areas? And that's how some of those initial personality conversations and how we think about stuff have evolved into a more strategic marketing plan.
No, that's absolutely right. And I think what I just moved the camera. Whoops. I think what you're hitting on there is thought leadership. You want to establish thought leadership in your industry. And whenever you're approaching this topic of employee benefits, you're looking at it from a completely different angle than your average, benefits provider would be. And so the fact that you're able to provide that thought leadership in your marketing strategy is going to automatically differentiate you from your competition. They can see, oh, Bret's talking about this new values-driven approach to employee benefits. But then whenever they see you talking about it, whenever they see the content that you're putting across and they come across your business, it automatically builds that trust to show, oh man, Bret's at the top of his game on this topic. He's changing the industry in this way. And so I think I really love hearing that you're presenting yourself as a thought leader out in the community. I think that's really important. And kind of shifting along those same lines, whenever you do have that new and fresh understanding of the value of long-term employee investment, I guess how does that translate to lead generation? So the strategies that we're implementing can generate those leads if we implement the messaging correctly. So how do you make sure you're attracting the right audience in your lead generation campaigns?
So that's a hard one, getting the right audience for the lead generation campaign. So we do start with, the stories of what we've done. So there is the successes we've had. Now, is every test subject a wild success? No. Our standards of wildly successful, though, are super high. Like we have things that I will call a mediocre or okay situation. And that's maybe, having someone that hasn't had to raise the deductible or raise a copay or raise a payroll deduction for a few years. Like that's mediocre to me. Sadly, that's still vastly successful in an industry where people are, taking 10, 15% price increases, reducing benefits and having to scale back on retirements or wages. Like that becomes the normal. So here we've been able to go ahead and have other clients where we have been able to stabilize those items, reduce the member or the personal, at the copay office, reduce the copays, reduce the deductibles, get them their, what we consider super high, $15,000, $20,000 drugs for free, do those things that are impactful for the employee level because it shares with a savings for the employer through a way we're procuring those service items, whether that be medical or pharmaceutical. And now we're not only able to go ahead and levelize that employer's price increases, but we've also been able to reduce the employee's cost at the same time so the employer can reinvest in something else. Those are the ones that are widely successful when I say we've done things that have fixed the employee's pocketbook, changed the payroll deductions, changed the wage increases, and let employers go back to funding retirement plans when we start thinking long-term. And then when we have the conversation with employers of, hey, Braden has been with you 3 years or more now. We're coming up on a work anniversary. Should we do something that is, quote unquote special, but strategic at the same time. So is there, a different program, some kind of health service, some kind of financial service that we need to then unlock for a person at a certain tenure to continue to create building into the long-term success of the employee? One, because that employee's been there long enough, they've proven they're worth the investment. But then if they've been with you that long, as long as, the assumption is they're staying with you, they're performing at least okay, if not great. How do we make them feel warm, trusted, cherished, so they can perform great? Or what's, very common for all of us when we have longer tenured employees, we're going to go through different seasons of their lives. That may be childbirth, that may be marriages, that may be divorces, that may be financial strains, legal issues. There's a lot of those stressors that take a employee's performance down, and the employee that wasn't invested in originally doesn't really weather those storms near as well as an employee that was, cherished ahead of those life events. And, we're all in multiple stages of life. Looking at that long-term employee, how do you support someone when it's going great, so that when, everything falls to pieces, that is still an employee that knows that when they're at their best, they're coming back to you, or when they're not at their best, they're still willing to not be checked out. Like, yes, will the rest of the employees at your company, your team, probably have to pick up some slack? Yes, but you create the trust environment so they know when it's their turn or they go through something, that other person will be there to pick up their slack too. And so that long-term investment that can be really, really simple items early on just helps really create that long-term success.
Absolutely, Brett. I think that's an excellent point. Now, you mentioned there in that answer, the basically social proof is a big part of what you do as well. And making sure that whenever people do interact with your brand, they're seeing that social proof, whether it be through client testimonials or any other social proof that you're presenting. Now, one other thing that I wanted to ask you about is the power of brand consistency. So whenever we talk about brand, oftentimes we're talking about not only just that social proof, but the fact that every time someone interacts with Generous Benefits, the brand looks the same, it feels the same, and it presents that same values-driven approach every single time. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of brand consistency in your approach to marketing?
Yeah, from that aspect, I am by far not the best at creating guardrails. I'm a very in the moment creative that will do one thing at 2 p.m. and another thing at 4 p.m. So having, the documented brand guidelines is something that I naturally don't love. However, from a consistency perspective, it is vital to the point where I even have 99.99% I obey it these days. So having that document that's shareable across the organization that everyone can get to, super important, so that we know that we're, not skewing the colors, or the sizing's not wrong, or you're not distorting something, all the way down to brand imagery, words we use, disallowed words, not shortcutting certain things so that we don't, water down what the message is or who we are.
Right.
And then going back through and making sure that all of the imagery we use really represents our clients as much as it represents us. So there is the aspect of, who are our clients? What do they look like? How do they speak? How do we build that back in so that they feel a part of our brand? And that's been something very intentional in the last 3 years as we've gone through collateral, whether that be website or social media or paper print collateral. Like, how is this representative? Also let's actually pull a list of our clients and talk internally about, who they are, why did they find us, what do they like about us, and how would they talk about us? And then going through and figuring out how that fits into our general brand. Because really, much like as a leader, your employees are a huge mirror of who you are. So however you behave, they reflect it upon you. Whoever your clients are, however they found you is going to be reflective of your brand. So you have a great resource in that clientele to know what's occurring correctly first.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well, last two questions, I guess. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to build a strong and lasting brand in today's competitive market? You mentioned the importance of that consistency, but what advice would you give to someone who's kind of in your shoes a few years ago, looking to start that brand that's kind of a different approach to the way other people have built their business?
Yeah. It's very hard to speak about what you feel. Putting feelings into usable paper and words are very difficult. So spending some time doing that, of like, what do you feel about your brand? How do you want to be perceived? Who do you want to react? Like, what are those reactions you want to elicit from them? Having those put down yourself, and then going to someone else to help you formalize that process. It's a very, can be hard, humbling process. Some people may find it super easy. It is not something I find super easy to do. So setting aside the time, don't let yourself get so overwhelmed with, the metrics that you need to achieve that you forget the foundational elements. And if you don't have your brand set up right, then you are going to feel like you're starting over in year 2, year 3, year 5. And so spend that investment time early on. Now, allow yourself time to mature and to realize things you may not have realized in the very beginning. But go ahead and set that foundational time. Do the hard work around, your brand story, who you are, what you want to impact, how you want your team, how would you train a new hire on your brand? What are those elements you need them to know in the first 30 days? Having all of that set out and foundationalized or systemized so that you can bring on new hires, again, will set your brand up for success faster than anything you could do in the next 30 days.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bret, for that. Last question, where can people find you online?
Yeah, fantastic. So generousbenefits.com is our website. So that's, like most companies and brands, will be the central hub. Our second most active area is LinkedIn. And then there's also the Generous Benefits and the Generous Impact podcast. So we have the Generous Benefits side, which is stories around benefits, how this confusing world of benefits works. What are those inside details? What are the things that we've known that you may not know? What are the things we just found out about? Who are other people and great voices in the area you should learn from? So that's the Generous Benefits podcast. The Generous Impact podcast is more the stories of people improving their communities. That is the community we want to serve. Like, we want clients that are improving their companies or their greater communities around them. So we do have the Generous Impact podcast focused to help find those prospects, customers, highlight those both. And so both those, you can find us and find out a little bit more about our company and our personality and values.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Bret, for jumping on, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Braden.